A country with hundreds of thousands of students in our universities, hundreds of thousands of students in the streets with degrees and diplomas, cannot fail to recruit police officers who are graduates. The kind of training the police require today, the kind of equipment the police require today, the forensic training the police require today. I'm happy Uhuru has finally opened the forensic lab that has taken over 3 decades to construct.
Multi-million.
People to work in that lab for maximum benefit must people who have had some serious education. All of them, the DCI, the ODPP, the judiciary, the police, and all these people. But I want to single out the judiciary as a missing link in the fight against crime. The judiciary, and I've challenged Justice Martha Koome. You are going to finish your term as a judge. You will never leave any mark unless you address the way we handle cases in our courts.
Through toil, sweat and tears, Kenyans continue to pursue wealth accumulation. However, there's a fraction of the same that have chosen the easier way out, and that's through the dark tunnel of robbery, sometimes with violence attached to it. Now, as a young economy, how did we arrive here? And going into the future, could we have some remedies towards curtailing this vice that has taken up the recent times in this very own country? My name is Richard Mwenja. Welcome to yet another edition of Business Glide. Always a pleasure having you with us on board. And now to help me join into this discussion is none other than the famous, or I should say renowned political analyst and public scholar in Eastern and Central Africa, the first of his name, Herman Manyora. Great to see you.
Thank you, Richard.
In a blue shirt.
Thank you.
All right. Let's talk matters wealth accumulation and how best one can safeguard in this country. If you look at our recent mainstream media, of course, cases of violence, robbery, carjacking have washed our mainstream news. And Kenyans are a bit worried whereby you toil for so long, but you're not sure if you'll be able to safeguard what you've earned diligently and with utmost integrity. But let's try and perhaps look at the author of this problem. Could we be looking at a position of, say, joblessness in the country? And even if it's a matter of joblessness, are we looking at a position whereby probably William Ruto is the best candidate who can turn around the situation? Because the majority of persons who are undertaking this vice are young people, the hustlers, you know. But he has promised, of course, to get them out of the bottom part of the pyramid, give them sustainable jobs which they can earn their income with dignity and so forth. So one, is it joblessness, and could Ruto be the silver bullet?
You know, there's a correlation between what we call development and the crime. Some of the instances of crime we have today, types of crime, could have been unimagined 30 years ago. So one would safely conclude, the higher you go in development, the higher the chances that new forms of crime will come. And as you rightly put it, part of it is because of the state of helplessness, joblessness. You can imagine a country with educated men and women without jobs. These are people with brains. You can also imagine the turnover in companies. So for example, banks, actually I call banks stupid. And the Kenya Bankers Association should listen to me. You get a graduate, you bankers, and pay them 40,000, 30,000 shillings. After a year or two, they surely will have left. There's very high turnover in the banks. You think you are getting cheap labor, but you are creating a pool of young men with the knowledge of how banking works, and with the cyber crime at its peak. You are sitting on a time bomb. I hear banks are now losing about, I can't remember, was it 20-something billion or 12 billion? Something, I think 12, I think about 20-something billion shillings. I can't get the figure, but it's in billions of shillings every year to cybercrime. But they do not know it is because they are trying to exploit people's children. A university graduate used to join the bank as a management trainee. Then they lowered it to graduate trainee. Then graduate clerk. Then my son was employed and I saw he was paid 34,000 shillings. The banks are creating problems for themselves. So part of the problems we have is that we have a pool of excuse me, educated young men and women outside there with the knowledge to understand the world and the workings of systems, but without jobs. We are not saying they should steal, but you are saying it is dangerous to have those kind of people. And even the police. The police just routinely dismiss people from the police.
We'll get back to that in a few matters, cyber crime and of course systemic failures in the part of organizations. But let's look at the issue of a splash of opulence in our social media platforms, which has given the young people, most of them who are into this vice, the pressure to live within those standards, you know, social media pressure and all that. Would you say that there is a need for change in public mindset towards work that needs to be inculcated in the lives of our youth? Because everyone wants to go through the easier way to attain in some sort of wealth and also to compete with their peers and so forth. So perhaps look at changing the public mindset of Kenyans towards work and know that it takes time, and eventually in the fullness of time, hard work will eventually pay.
Yes, wash. You know, there was a research conducted by the Daily Nation or Nation Media Group, I don't know which, but they're the one and same people. And the young people were just clear about it. They just want the good things of life. When they were asked, how about the way you get, say, no, it doesn't matter. No, I want a big phone. How I get is not important. I want to drive a good car. I want to live in a nice apartment.
In a leafy neighborhood.
Yes, they want the good things of life. But challenged about earning that money, they say it's not important. So that's the country we live in, a country in which everybody wants to be rich.
But should we place the blame at the footstep of a political class who set the standard too high in terms of wealth accumulation, oftentimes not through the transparent
Certainly
way?
it's about leadership. Countries that have done something about that have really had good leadership. You must have exemplary leadership that sets the standards, that sets the bar high, and that announces clearly to all and sundry that in this country only hard work pays.
All right.
Yeah, it's leadership.
We have had issues of quote-unquote guns for hire, whereby our security agencies, some of them have been part of this racket that is enhancing violence, robbery, oftentimes with violence attached to it. They list their guns to these criminals. You've seen it happen in Ngong, in so many cases, and it's recorded. It's in the open public domain and so forth. Back in the days, armories for military establishment, our security forces, used to be very confined, you know. It was a secured package, you know. But nowadays you are seeing more of these criminals being caught, but they say they have links in our police service force, in our other security agencies and so forth. Where did the integrity of our security forces go to? What could be pushing them to be part of such rackets? That instead of protecting the civilians, they are part of those antagonizing them.
I don't speak for the police, but I can tell you here now, if the police were to do what you people are saying, then the rate of crime in this country will be on another level. If the police were easily handing over guns to criminals and leasing them, where will this country be?
We've had a number of cases.
No, one or two isolated cases. That is normal anywhere in the world. A rogue officer giving their gun to, that is not something you want to use and say this is going on. If it was going on, I tell you. Sometimes I think Kenyans don't understand the work of the police. The police work under very difficult circumstances.
Talk to us.
And they do a difficult job. They can do it better, I know. They can do it with better training, better equipment. But under the circumstances, the police do a serious job for this country. And to say that they lease out guns to criminals is really to be unfair to them. Because they don't do that. If they did that, we would all know. We will all be, it will be so bad. It doesn't mean one or two policemen may not misbehave and give out their guns. And a number of them have been caught. But you cannot use that and say this is what happens within the police. No.
I see.
In fact, this country, in terms of licensed firearms and security firearms within the security sector, is well accounted for. Yeah, that's why whenever a rogue police officer shoots somebody, that gun is traced.
All right.
The bullet is trained to that gun. So I don't think we should do that. However, what I think you need to know is that we have a problem with firearms in this country. Because of our neighbors, and instability.
Porous borders.
The porous borders. So small arms are an issue in this country. And you cannot trace that to the police. I want to defend the police because I'm convinced if that were the case, all of us would know it. And the situation will be very bad.
All right.
Yeah.
Talking about matters to do with the police service, you've said one of the ways we can really help them ramp up their efforts in maintaining law and order is by inculcating the skills of combating modern day crime in the cyberspace and so forth. We've seen there has been an issue with the uptake of graduate police constables, of course, on and off tassels. There are those supporting it. On the other side, SRC and other commissioners will say we are not ready for it in terms of salaries. We cannot, of course, do the job remuneration and so forth. A number of challenges. Don't you think it's high time that we look at the issue of doing rigorous refresher courses for all our police force, regardless of your rank and your entry cadre, so that all of them are abreast with the modern changes in terms of terrorism and violence?
The police require modern training. To fight modern crime, you need modern training. They require modern gear, modern equipment and all that, modern skills. My position on training of police is simple. And it's not just the police. A country with 71 universities, a small country like this, with over 500,000 students in our public universities, with thousands upon thousands of unemployed graduates, a country like this cannot afford to recruit anybody into teaching unless they are graduates. A country with hundreds of thousands of students in our universities, hundreds of thousands of students in the streets with degrees and diplomas, cannot fail to recruit police officers who are graduates. The kind of training the police require today, the kind of equipment the police require today, the forensic training the police require today. I'm happy Uhuru has finally opened the forensic lab that has taken over 3 decades to construct.
Multi-million.
People to work in that lab for maximum benefit must people who have had some serious education. So my argument is, let us make use of the children we have educated ourselves. Not to say that those others cannot be absorbed elsewhere. Nobody should take me wrong. But I'm saying reading modern crime, getting modern training for a policeman, it will be better with a person who enters Kiganjo as a graduate. Number 2, let us recognize our graduates when they are police officers. I've taught police officers at the University of Nairobi, and I've made them complaining that the government doesn't recognize them. They did so for a while, then they lapsed. That is wrong. We must recognize graduate police officers. Right. And finally, I have argued in this country, not everybody will need to go to university to upscale salary and the job group and the promotion. No. Let's give people within service training so that you can grow within your area without necessarily going to waste time at the university. Most of it is wasting time.
Doing masters.
But fresh police recruits must be graduates.
All right.
Going forward. After all, they are our children.
Yes. We have seen the Kenya Defence Forces take seriously the issue of refresher courses. Before you elevate to the next rank, you go for field training, for classroom examination and all that. Do you mean KDF somewhat it's because of probably their resource that's given by the parliament, by the government, that's why they have the capacity to do that? Or so are we talking about the budget KDF is, of course, facilitating such that you cannot achieve the same in the police service?
Okay, the military gets a better budget than the police. But they both need to be facilitated.
At the same level, you know?
We must take our security serious as a people. We are entering an era where unless we take care of security, we will be finished.
Okay.
Because in places like Kiambu, people have put up very big mansions. They don't stay there because of poverty, because of the rate of crime. Cyber crime is at another level across the world. To be able to join Interpol in fighting cyber crime and other modern forms of crime, you need to have the best. In fact, in some countries, to join the police force, you must be top of your class at the university.
Okay.
Only the top can join some academies, police academies. We need a police academy in this country that recruits nothing but the best. You are at the university, you are a first-class student, and you want to join the police, not because you met 300,000 to become a police officer, because you really want to be a policeman. I met another young man called Mwaniki many years back, and I told him you go far. Recently, he called me after many years. I'm happy he has really gone far.
I see.
You could see
the passion and
the
zeal.
police in him. And he was a graduate from Kikuyu campus, University of Nairobi. You could see the police in him, and he was in DCI, then it was called CID. You could see it in him, and I knew he'd go far. We need people like those who have nothing but the best academic qualifications to enter into our elite police forces.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you'll agree with me that it's one thing actually to nab these offenders who of course mug people around their property, but it's also a different thing to prosecute them. Of course, oftentimes we've had the issue with the latter. And does the blame squarely lie at the doorstep of the judiciary, or still in our agencies such as the DCI and the police service with regards to expediting the investigation and also seeing into the full prosecution process at the end of the day?
I think all the agencies and the units and departments would need to pull up their socks. All of them, the DCI, the ODPP, yes, the judiciary, the police, and all these people. But I want to single out the judiciary as a missing link in the fight against crime. The judiciary, and I've challenged Justice Martha Koome. You are going to finish your term as a judge. You will never leave any mark unless you address the way we handle cases in our courts. Most of these things are clerical. They can be done in a very simple way. If I landed at judiciary, the man in charge, within 6 months, you will not believe this is the Kenya you know.
Radical
I have
surgery?
gone to court. I've gone to court for my own case. This accident case, you can see this.
Yes, yes.
I've stopped what I was doing, suspended everything, to get to court. The case is supposed to start at 9. My name or my case, they call it cause file, cause whatever they call them, comes at 1. The magistrate says she's going for lunch and she may not come back. She has something to attend to. You go back.
That's
3, 4, 5 times. But what is even worse, when I was told that the kind of damages cited in this case are beyond the limits for this court. So I found myself, surely, we've been waiting all this month for us to be told that this court cannot handle a case which again turned out to be wrong anyway. So I'm saying there are so many useless things the courts can handle within 3, 4 weeks, 3 months, and they unclog the system. There are so many of these cases that can be clerked. The way you go to a hospital, you don't necessarily see a doctor. You are clerked by clinical officers and others. You get what I'm saying? Some people who take lies, direct lies to court. We can have a department within the court working with the provincial administration, the chiefs and everyone, about land cases. We can take you under oath. Let's go to the site. Before even, and people run away. There's so much we can do. But finally, why I dismiss our courts. They are hiding in what we call adversarial system, where the judge is just there on the bench. Hear nothing, no evil, let the prosecution and the other side fight. Let the litigants fight. Even when you can see nonsense going on, they must move out of that nonsense. Because if you listen to like the ICC, you can see the intervention from the bench. The intervention from keeps the case alive and short. And the people who are planning to play with the court just run away. Because the judge asks you a question. They give you, you have come for this remedy. But in the circumstances, supposing the other party decided, instead of that, they were willing, that kind of engagement between the bench and the bar can fasten the case. But finally to say, the judiciary is the missing link in the fight against corruption, because if a case started before Bush was born,
and it's still going on.
It's still going. So what are we talking about? We are just jokers.
Radical surgery at the judiciary.
It can't be radical. The one we have seen is rubbish. We just need one man or woman in the State House.
And there becomes.
When I hear Martha Karua has a chance to be minister in terms of justice,
then justice will be served.
I think crooks have a problem in this country.
All right. So we've seen modern countries, well-performing ones. Their success has fairly been judged by how they treat their most vulnerable and, of course, their senior citizens. In this case, most of which are orphans, the widows, the widowers, and retirees. We've seen them check how they go into retirement, how the little they have saved through the years and accumulated, how it is spent, and also how it is secured from nobody coming and claiming it, yet they don't really own it. We've seen cases of particularly of land grabbing whereby you target Manyora retires, he's an old man sitting under a tree, then you know perhaps we can go at the lands ministry, work in cahoots with the rogue officers and then snatch that property from Herman Manyora. It is happening for many of our senior citizens and the most vulnerable in the society. As a developing country that we are, is there something policy, in terms of policy recommendation that you can come with that can guide, of course, affairs of our senior citizens and the most vulnerable so that they also secure their wealth?
A lot has been done. You know, it's good to be fair. The land registry is no longer what it used to be. So much has been done, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. Government must come up with systems that are almost foolproof, because land is a very serious issue. People continue to be conned and lose money in what would have been avoided. So although much has been done from the time of Charity Ngilu, I think government must move and do a lot more than it's doing today.
All right. The very last, we've seen Kenya's transport sector being riddled with the highest cases of theft, mugging, you know, and all that number of carjacking cases and so forth. Going into the future, we'll going through the other modes of transport, say air transport, railway transport, to help secure the affairs of our citizens, because we are seeing the matatus have bolstered into the bedrock of mugging and all that kind of crime. What can SACCOs really do to improve security of their clients and also to just safeguard their assets and so forth?
You know, what I'm saying is systems. You need systems in place. And the people with the capacity, not just develop the system, but make sure they work and supervise them and ensure things are moving. And the security must be part and parcel built into all those arrangements.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you signaling perhaps at our bus terminuses, CCTV, surveillance cameras?
We have all those, but you see that I'm saying you can have something, the hardware, but the software required, not the software of the CCTVs, of the men and women who are supposed to be part and parcel, an integral part of the whole system. If they are wanting.
Integrity of the drivers, makangas.
Yeah. It's the software that is lacking.
I see.
Yes.
Well, that's why we wrap up this conversation. Touches on matters wealth accumulation and also safeguarding it so that you get to enjoy what you've worked for the many years, probably in the public service, private sector, or in personal employment. I should say that. So we are looking at some of the recommendations that Kenyan government can tap into also as an individual, how you can, of course, improve your security where you live and ensure that that which you've rightfully acquired cannot be taken away from you. That's our conversation for the day. But before I leave, our fan of the week is none other than the 21 Kenya Rifles Battalion sitting up there in the northeastern region. They say they are in the barracks, they watch us regularly, they love our economic discussions, and they say they are big, they're giving their credits due to Herman Manyora. What's your word to them?
Thank you for our boys right down there in the scorching sun.
Yes.
As we sleep safely, we know you are doing your job and we are happy and proud of you.
The guardians at the gate.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thanks very much to the 21 Kenya Rifles Battalion, Kenya Defense Forces. Always a pleasure when you tune into our conversations. We say asante sana. Up next is the Business Glide, African proverb of the day.